We'll understand about Python modules and functions. We have interpreter to try out a piece of code, but it can't be reused. To make it reusable, we can write the code in a file and save it with .py extension. Whenever we save Python function or Python statements in a file, uh, it is called a module. So any file with .py extension is called a Python file, and the name of the file without the extension, it is called a module. So this is an example of Python file, say module.py. If I want to know the name of this file, then it is module. Module is the name of the module, and if it is module.py, it is a Python file. In the beginning of this file, you can see three codes. We have three codes within which there is a module description. So here it is called docstrings. This is called docstrings, used to describe the module documentation. And we are using import. Import is equivalent of include in case of C or C++ or Java. So Python provides a statement called import to import any library or any file or any module. And def is a keyword used to define a function. How do we define a function? Use def keyword followed by a space and name of the function, and if the function takes any arguments, enclose the arguments within the parenthesis followed by a colon. So this is a syntax for defining the function. If there is no content for the function, then we can use pass. So this means this is a function which has nothing to do. So as is, if I leave, then it leads to the syntax error. If I don't write anything, if I delete all these things, then as is, if I leave, it will lead to the syntax error. So to overcome the syntax error, we can use the pass statement. This means it is equivalent to no operation in C. So NOP. Say I need to define the function description. So if whenever we have something to describe, say the function description or the module description, then we have to use the quotes. It can be a single quote or a double quote, three quotes. So this will define the function description. So this is a method to print the arguments. And whenever we want to insert a comment, a single line comment can be inserted using hash. And in this function, it is doing the print action, printing the arguments. And we have line 14, it says if it is running in the main context, then invoke this function. This is the function definition, and this is the function call, passing the arguments. We'll see how to execute this module. And if you see, I have put three print statements, all printing the arguments. This is to showcase three different ways of output, displaying the output. Say print, either I can use like this using format method. It's a string method. String is a class, so format is a method of the string. So either I can use this, or I can just specify the arguments, or this is the C type of displaying the output, %s or D or F. So depending on the context, user would decide what is the argument that he is printing. So here it is a string argument, so I have written %s. So this is C style. we have PEP guidelines, which is Python coding guidelines, and it will specify to use format method to display the arguments. So for the completeness, I have showed different ways of displaying the displaying the output. We'll see how to execute this. So go to the directory where we have created the Python file. The reason being, whenever we try to execute a Python file, the way Python discovers the file is, it will check in the current directory. If the file is found, then it will execute. Otherwise, it will check in the environment system path of the environment variables. If you remember, we had set Python executable by creating a path variable in the environment variables. So it will check in that path, and if it is not found, then it says the module is not found. So that is the reason we are going inside the directory where we have created our file, and we can execute now. So I have created the module.py in the D directory at Python exercises folder. So go to this folder, type Python followed by a space and then module name. Don't forget to include .py extension. So we are executing this file. So we have three different methods of displaying the output, and all the three methods resulted in the same output. So depending on the ease of use or comfort, you can follow any method, but I would always suggest use format argument, because you can play around here. You can specify which is the index. So here it would be a list of content. So say arg of 0, arg of 1, say I have arg of 2. So how does it know? So you just have to specify in what order I have to print. 0, 1, 2. I'm providing three arguments. In what order I want to print, I have complete control over here. So I can specify, I mean, though I have specified 2, 0, 1 in as in it is convenient, but when it is displaying, it will display the first 0, 1, 2. So wherever it's 0 is there, so 0th is arg2 is at 0th location index, and arg0 is at first index, and arg1 is at second index. So it will print in the same order. If I execute now, see, module.py is argument 0, and hello is argument 1, and world is argument 2. And the way we have printed is, so first we are printing arg2, that is what we are mentioning, arg equal to print whatever that is there in the first index, and then print whatever that is there in the first index. Here it was 0th index, here it's first index, and print whatever that is there in the second index. So it printed 2, 0, 1. So 2 is world, 0 is module.py, and 1 is hello. And the same file, if I execute in Eclipse, how do we execute a module in Eclipse? Say this is a file, there's one way of printing, okay, and if I want to execute it, right click on the file name, run as Python run. Before this, if I have to pass the arguments like I do in the command prompt, right click on it, run as, run configurations, and just verify what is the main module. Main module is module.py. Then what is the arguments? I'm passing hello world or whatever you want to pass, and then run. So you can see argument is equal to, the first is the file name, then next is the argument that we passed in the same order that we have passed. And when I use a debug, I have placed a breakpoint here. Double click on the line wherever you want to place the breakpoint. So at line 11 I have placed a breakpoint. Right click on module.py, go to debug as, and then Python run. It will prompt to open debug perspective, say yes. Reason being, you can watch the variables associated with this module. See, any module you create, these are the global variables that would be created. When you want to access the doc strings, that is the module documentation, you can use double underscore doc with double underscore. So if I want to print the module documentation, this is how I print the module documentation. And if I want to print the function documentation, I can use print, say the module name, say this is a module name, right? Print arguments dot doc. And we'll comment out the rest of the things. So if you want to know the file name at the runtime, this is the global variable that you have to access. File, name of the module, name of the package, and what is the documentation string, and any local variables or any module related variables you can also see here. So we'll see now what happens if I execute this. I'm trying to print the module documentation, and here I'm trying to print the method documentation. So method documentation should print this line, method to print arguments, whereas module documentation should print this. This is a module description file line. And if I execute, first there was a module description, so this is a module description file, and next we printed method to print the arguments. So this is how we print the doc strings related to the module and related to the function. It can be called as a function or it can be called as a method. In the next example, we'll see the functions. See, in the function.py is a file name, whereas function is a module name. This is the Python function and argument description. This is the module description, whereas this is the method description. Here we are defining a fn is a function. If you observe, there is an indentation. There is a difference between the def. Def is at one. The alignment of def and the contents of this function is different. So all the contents of the function is aligned to 4 spaces in this example. It can be a 4 spaces or a tab, or it can be a single space, whereas def is at a different alignment. So this is called indentation. In Python we don't have open and close braces as we have in any other language. So we are separating that. Wherever we used to use open and close braces, there leave a space or 4 spaces or a tab. And whenever you are using space, always use the same amount of space. Say for example, after this function definition, after this function keyword, you are maintaining a single space. Then throughout the file, you should maintain single space. If you are maintaining 4 spaces, then throughout the file you should maintain 4 spaces. Same with tab. Even 5 spaces is also fine, but throughout, wherever the indentation is required, there it should be 5 spaces or 4 spaces or a single space, whatever you are following. If you are using at one place you are using a tab and another place if you are using a space, then also it leads to the indentation error. So take care while writing the Python code. And it is easy to find out if you are getting indentation error because it throws the error with the name indentation error. Okay, in this function we have three arguments, C, A, B and C. And if you are observing C, there is some value assigned to C. This is called default value. This is the function definition and we are doing some operation A into B plus C. And whenever, the reason being, whenever C is not mandatory to pass, the value of C is not mandatory to be passed from wherever you are calling this function. Suppose in the function call, if you are passing the C value, then it will take that value. Otherwise, by default, it will take C equal to 1. Whereas, it is mandatory to pass arguments for A values to A and B, but not for C. It's not a mandatory. We'll see different ways of calling this function. Say in this example, I'm running this function.py in the context of main. If you are using this one, this line, this module can be reused. I can import this module and I can use function defined in this module, which we'll learn later. So right now we are trying to call function passing two arguments, but we don't get the error because we have something defined for C by default. So A and B will take 1 and 2, whereas C it will take 1. So it returns 3 and this is called positional argument. So it is A is at position 1, so we are passing A equal to 1. Instead of saying A equal to 1, we are just passing with respect to that position. So the first one would always be taken for A, second argument would be taken for B, and third value, if we have defined, it would be taken for C. Since we have not defined, it will take the default value, which is 1. So this is an example for positional arguments, positional and the default argument. In the second example, we are passing the value. So we are defining the values at the respective positions. Whatever we define in the first position, it will be taken for A. Second position, it will be taken for B. And third position, it will be taken for C. Here we are passing the value. It is not going to take the default value, but it is going to take the value that we have passed. We'll see what is the output of this. So in the first example, it is just 1, 2. 1 into 2, 2 plus 1, 3. So this is the output that we got. In the second example, we have passed 1, 2, 3. So these are all positional arguments. So 1 into 2, 2 plus 3, 5. Now we'll call the function, we'll invoke the function like this. Say C is equal to 5, B is equal to 2, A is equal to 2. Whenever I don't want to maintain the same order, same position, then I have to use the argument name that the function defines and assign the value. So though A is at first position, we are defining C equal to 5. So the Python will understand C is a function argument and we are assigning a value of 5 for that. So this way you are flexible enough, whatever that is required, that you can assign it. So this is called named argument. So C equal to 5, B equal to 2 and A equal to 2. So here we are not depending on the position, but we are depending on the function argument name. So it is called named argument. So we'll comment first, second, and we'll see what happens when we execute. So A plus B is 2 into 2, 4, 4 plus 5, 9. Yes. And we have, so this is a positional, named argument as well as default argument. So b equal to 2, a equal to 2. We are naming the values taking using the arguments. So, but C we are not providing. So by default it will take C equal to 1. So it will return 5. Now in the fourth example, see, I'm assigning 5, then I'm using the named arguments. So 5 means it is at position 1. So the position 1 is at A. So A, it is Python will interpret it as A equal to 5, C equal to 2 and B equal to 1. So this is an example for positional as well as named arguments. So this is 7. A into B, 5 into 1, 5 plus 2, so 7. And say in the sixth example, we are calling 8. 8 means how does Python interpret this as? This will be interpreted as A equal to A, B equal to C, and C by default it is going to take 1. So it is a positional argument as well as named argument plus the default value. So default argument is an example for positional, named as well as default arguments. So it's going to return 1. Right? Okay. What if I don't pass the argument? So far we are providing either in the form of position or in the form of named, we are providing values for A, B, right? So if I don't provide the value for one of them or none of them, say I'll provide value for 1 and I'll not provide any other value. So how does Python interprets this? It would be interpreted as A equal to 2. B, there is no value, whereas it is mandated to give the value. So it will throw an error. Function takes at least 2 arguments, 1 given, right? At least 2 arguments, but 1 given. You will get an error. Even if you don't give any arguments, then it will say function takes at least 2 arguments, but given none. Takes at least 2 arguments, 0 given, right? Then if I have to pass variable number of arguments, in this example we have only 3 arguments, and out of which one we have assigned default value. Say in our example we don't know at the runtime how many arguments we are going to pass or the function is going to be passed, and say function variable arguments. You can use star to depict variable number of arguments. Star is very important. This you can give any names. You can give where arguments, and if you pass say print where args, so I'm invoking where function with, here I'll not get any error because at the runtime it can be user may pass the arguments or he may not pass the arguments, but still we will not get any error. So there is none. We are trying to print the variable arguments, but there is none, right? And if I want to pass some arguments like this, say, then what happens? If I execute it, it will just print all the arguments that we have passed. There is one more way of defining variable arguments. It is called keyword arguments. copy this one, where you will assign the key and the value. Table key, I'll say key variable functions. I mean key variable arguments. So word arguments. And the same thing, I can use this to pass the keyworded arguments. The way we use named arguments. Similarly, because at the runtime I don't know how many variables are there and what is the keyword associated with it. Whenever there is a requirement of accessing the keyword arguments, then you can use like this. To use double star. If it's a single star, it means it's variable arguments, and if it is a double star, it is keyword arguments. We'll see the example, what's the difference. See, in the first example, we just passed 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 and we are printing var arguments. But in the second example, we are passing a equal to 1. That means a is a keyword and 1 is a value for that. B is a keyword and 2 is a value for that. So when we executed this, it resulted in a dictionary. This is called dictionary and this is called tuple. We'll understand what is a dictionary and tuple going further, but if you want to use variable arguments where we just want the arguments but which is not associated with any keyword, then use a single star, and if you want to associate an argument with the keyword, then use double star. So this name, it can be anything. So in this example, we learned what is a module, what are the different functions, how we call functions, positional arguments, default arguments, named arguments, how to pass variable arguments, and how to pass keyworded variable arguments.